Once again, the fight was intense, and they knew that Marius is never gonna stop till he kills everyone on the surface. But he nearly killed Cyborg, defeated Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash, and they can't figure out what to do. That's when Batman preferred to use his brain over his muscles, and he got an idea. But most importantly, is it gonna work? What is that idea? Well, stick around to find out. But of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Our story begins in an American submarine responding to an SOS call, but suddenly, the radar caught a strange move belonging to a human figure. But how can a man move this fast underwater? That's when something hit the submarine, and the sub begins to drown. So the captain tried to call for help, but it was too late, and they all drown. Then we see a man telling Cyborg about the sub, and he told him that he has to call the Justice League, and the Justice League was not officially yet. So Cyborg refused, cause they won't show up, because every one of them has his own issues, and he decided to go check the sub himself. Then, we see a man named Arthur, and he was talking to a lobster, telling him about his father's death. In the middle of their conversation, the owner of the bar tried to take the lobster, but Arthur told him to leave them alone. That's when a bar fight began, because that big guy wants to have a lobster for dinner. Arthur beat him up with the rest of his gang, and one of them tried to stab him, but the knife broke, so he got scared and ran away. That's when we see a woman called Mara watching the fight, and after that, she jumped into the ocean. Meanwhile, Cyborg was investigating the sub, and he found the SOS videos, and suddenly, something attacked him. He couldn't see anything because they move very fast, so eventually, he decided to run and call the Justice League. The first one arrived was Shazam, then Flash, and no one else showed. So Flash decided to look and inform them about the meeting. First, he found Green Lantern and told him about the meeting, and Cyborg, with Shazam, went to notify Superman and Wonder Woman. They all meet in the Hall of Justice, and they notice that someone is missing. And where is Batman? Of course, he has his own criminals to chase, but Green Lantern took it personally, and if he's here, Batman also has to be here, and went to bring him. Batman was chasing Scarecrow criminals, and when he saw Green Lantern, he knew he came here because of the missiles missing from the sub. Hal decided to finish that chase and use his powers to stop the criminals, and they got arrested. But Batman told him if he wanted to arrest them, he could've, but he wants to plant fear in them, cause they have info he needs. After that, they went to the Star Labs to investigate the sub, and they found that all of this is done by hand. But who could have done that? Besides them, of course. Cyborg decided to show them what he saw in the sub during the attack, and view the hologram, cause he records everything he sees. And finally, they found out that it's people. Skilled, trained people. But Wonder Woman told them they are not normal humans. They are from Atlantis. We all know the story of Atlantis that got lost in the ocean, but the problem is, they have to go to Atlantis to continue the investigation, but its location is unknown, even for the Amazons. That's when Shazam remembered a show he watched for a professor named Steven, who spent his whole life looking and searching for Atlantis, so they decided to give him a visit. That's when we go to Atlantis and meet Marius, son of Queen Atlanta, and he wants to destroy the surface so they can live in peace with his people. But his mother doesn't agree with him, cause she knows that the war will destroy both sides, and she told him as long as she lives there, there will be no war. Then we see Mera, who tells the queen that she found him. She means her son, and she was looking for him because he is suitable to rule, cause he's from both worlds, and her younger son can't rule, cause he wants and will destroy the peace if he sits on the throne. In the next day, we see Arthur waking up by the knocks on the door, and that was Steven trying to tell him something about his father, but before he says anything, he got killed. And that was a few soldiers from Atlantis wanting to kill Arthur, cause they know the queen wants him to rule. Arthur managed to hold them for a bit, but they were too many, and that's when Mera saved them. Meanwhile, we see Black Manta driving an Atlantic sub, but he used a hologram to turn it into a human sub and attacked his own people. and killed a lot of them to convince them all that the surface declared war. Batman and Superman arrived to Steven's office and they discovered that someone was there to get rid of all of Steven's research, but they managed to find out what he is looking for, and that was Arthur. And they found a letter about Steven's doubts that Steven is half Atlantean. Meanwhile, Arthur woke in underwater, strangely found out that he can breathe, and he saw Mera, who told him about what's happening and about his mother, the war, and him becoming a king. Arthur couldn't handle all this at once, so he told her he needs some air and got out of the water, and immediately he came across sea monsters who wants to kill him. He fought them with Mera, but they were outnumbered, and that's when the Justice League showed up and helped. Mera tried to take Arthur quickly to his mother so she can pronounce him as the king, but Arthur doesn't see himself as a king. But Superman told him that he's the only one who survived from his planet, and if he had a chance to save his people, he would take it no matter what. Then we see Marius meeting Manta, who tells him about his brother's survival, and Marius felt that all of Manta's plan is falling apart because the war was his idea, and that's when Atlanta comes to her son, and again, he tried to convince her about the war, and that's when she told him it's never gonna happen. Also, she knows that he's the one behind the attack against her people, and he will pay for his treason, and tried to get out. But Manta stopped her, and her son stabbed her in the back and killed her. Meanwhile, the Justice League with Arthur were on their way to Atlantis, but the whole city was empty, and they finally found that Atlanta is dead. Arthur went to see her body, and after a couple of minutes, Marius showed up, so immediately Mera tried to attack him because she knows that he's the one who killed her, and he didn't bother to say otherwise and said yes because he wants to declare war against the surface. Arthur attacked him, but Marius defeated him easily and also defeated the whole Justice League, put them into small capsules, and ordered his guards to throw them to the monster. The monster was gonna eat them all, but Arthur managed to free himself, then freed Superman, who took care of the monster with the help of Aquaman. Meanwhile, Marius finally declared war over the surface by telling his people they're the one responsible for his mother's death, and he took the soldiers, who went to the surface to begin war. When the soldiers arrived to the shore, the army was waiting and told them to stand back, but of course, he refused and the war begins. The whole Justice League joined the attack, defeated a few soldiers, but they have to take down their leader to end it all. Aquaman faced Manta, and he told him that he was planning to kill his brother from the beginning, and he was gonna continue telling him about his evil plans. So, Aquaman called the shark to eat Manta and save him some trouble. Meanwhile, Mera tried to take down Marius, but he defeated her easily and made her watch the end of the surface. That's when Shazam hit him with his lightning, but also, Marius can use the lightning, so he absorbs the attack and hits Shazam with a bigger one, bringing him down. So Cyborg tried to help, but he got stabbed in the heart, shutting off all his systems. So Flash, Wonder Woman, and Superman gathered to bring Marius down, but he defeated them all. Then we see Batman trying to use a stronger weapon, his brain. Meanwhile, Aquaman was facing his brother. None of them managed to take down the other, but eventually, Marius was so close to killing his brother. In the same exact time, Batman went to Hal asking him about any infos he knows, so Hal had to think for a moment, and finally, he told him that he killed his own mother, and he means Marius. Batman liked that info and went to Cyborg, managed to transform him into some kind of emergency power, and they told him about the info he got from Hal, and that's when Cyborg figured out what he wants to do. He immediately shows a hologram for all the Atlantean soldiers about Marius confessing his mother's death. Marius tried to convince his soldiers it's a fake technology, but Mera told them she was there, and it's all true. And that's when Aquaman took the Poseidon's blade, stood in front of the soldiers, and told them that he was born between two worlds, and together they will bring peace. And all of them took off their helmets and kneeled to their new king. And finally, the war is over. Cyborg got fixed, and finally he has a date. All of them attended Aquaman's crowning, and they finally agreed that they have to officially announce the Justice League and have a weekly meeting. All of them agrees, and Arthur told them to count him in. And that's when the movie ends. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications bell. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.